Apple pie, anyone? From the 1800s. Not the pie, but the recipe. I'm just not gonna give up without a fight. Hello everyone, welcome back to my kitchen. It's lovely to have you here today, and I got a brand spanking new cookbook to introduce. It's not very new, it's from 1896. It's the original Boston Cooking-School Cookbook from Fannie Farmer. Who's Fannie? Great question, glad you asked it. She was an American Culinary Expert long before Julia Child. It was Fannie, and I found out about her from many of you who told me to go check her out, check out old Fannie. People in the UK are gonna be very confused. I know, but it's Fannie Farmer, and that's a photo of her. As if it was taken yesterday. Quick story. Whenever I'm doing the laundry in this apartment building, you gotta go down the basement, and you always gotta pass this shelf. It's like a community bookshelf for old books that people don't want anymore. They put them on the shelf, someone else in the building can grab it, give it a second life. There's always old cookbooks on there. There's someone in this building that has collected old cookbooks and then also doesn't want them anymore, so puts them on the shelf. So whenever I'm doing laundry, I see a gem of a cookbook, and I'm like, okay, well, I'll grab that. You know, it's gonna come in handy down the road. Perfect for someone like me. So yeah, that's where I got this one. And this is considered the Bible of the American kitchen. It's one of the best-selling cookbooks of all time. And it was so popular because it was easy to follow back then, and because Fannie introduced this like precise measurement system. You've probably heard of it, but instead of using like a scoop of flour, old Fannie was like, well, why don't you use a cup of flour? Kind of a game changer. Now, because the book is so old, there's been so many different versions, like updated versions of it, and like tweaking the recipes throughout the years. And I have one of those updated versions of the cookbook right here, also in the basement on that shelf. It's called the Fannie Farmer Cookbook. Yeah, great to have it, but we're gonna follow this one today. And because it's apple season, I figure apple pie, Fannie Farmer's version of an apple pie. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna start off with making our pastry dough, or as Fannie calls it, a paste. So that's what I'll call it today, a plain paste. And we're gonna do this the way they would in the 1800s here. That means no food processor. She has a very descriptive way of making this paste, and that's what I'm going to adhere to. How about that? First of all, she says to wash the butter. Wash the butter. And I had to look up what the heck that meant because I'm not familiar with that method, nor do I live on a farm. But that's for homemade butter, and that's like unpasteurized butter. You want to wash it to rinse off like the buttermilk or any remaining milk that's in the fatty butter. You wash it off to preserve it. So yeah, that's good to know. But we don't need to do that because that is pasteurized and it has already been washed by someone. Form it into a circular piece. And she says that this butter needs to still have that waxy quality to it. I think this does. But I'm gonna do this quick so that the butter doesn't melt. Okay, stop. That is fairly circular, I would think. One thing I've learned along the way, trial and error, is to always double the pastry dough recipe that I'm following along to, the paste recipe. And that's because I've screwed up so many of these things over the years that it's always nice to have a backup plan. That's what I'm doing, yeah. So I'm using a half a cup of butter here, 3 cups worth of flour. I'm gonna add in a teaspoon of salt. Just mix. Okay, maybe stop using the takeout container. I'm gonna need a bowl for this. Thank you so much, wow. And the flour and salt can go into that bowl. I'm using a combination of butter and lard as the fats for it. And Fannie says that's because lard makes more tender crust than butter, but lacks flavor which butter gives. This is half a cup worth. Work in the lard with the tips of your fingers. Now she says cold water, so I got some cold water. She says ice water is not essential, but is desirable in the summer. It certainly is, but we're in the autumn now, so that's cool. I'm just gonna add in a little to moisten the dough. She's not telling me how much water, but you know, from experience, I know just a little. Toss on a board, dredge sparingly with flour. And now she wants me to follow along to the directions on the puff paste recipe. and it is to roll a 1/4 inch thick. Easily throw this all into the food processor right now, I'd be done, but not today. Keeping paste a little wider than long. Oh, okay. Place your circular butter into the center of lower half of paste. Cover butter by folding upper half of paste over it. Press edges firmly to close as much air as possible. Fold right side of paste over enclosed butter. Turn paste halfway round. Cover and let stand for 5 minutes. No, just getting going. I'm just gonna wait as she says, I guess. This is what she wants me to do. Wait 5 minutes. There you go, 5 minutes you won't get back. And let's continue. Pat and roll 1/4 inch thick, having paste longer than wide again. Just a dab of water here. It might be a bit dry. Okay. Okay, Jamie, this method is Fannie. What's going on here? Slightly flour the board when necessary and lifting the dough often so it doesn't stick to the board. Fold from the ends to the center. Classic letter fold situation. That's not what she's saying, but she says make 3 layers. Yeah, it's the letter fold. Come on. Cover and let stand for another 5 minutes. Turn halfway around, pat and roll out again, and then repeat. I've had enough of this method. I think I'm just gonna use all the great tips I've learned so far, but also just do the old smear tactic that Julia's taught me. One last integration of the flour and the fats. I'm happy with that. In fact, I see here you said fold it in a cheesecloth and put it in a covered tin and keep it in a cold place. Okay, here's a covered tin cheesecloth in my plastic bag. It will work, I know it. That was fun. Here's what's going on. I got the paste in the fridge. I looked up when the fridge was invented. It was 1913. This book is from 1896. So sorry, Fannie, not to rub it in. But yeah, I got it in the fridge. I want it to firm up a little more than it is right now. But she says to line the pie plate with the paste first before I start dealing with the apples. I'm gonna go with the apples first. Okay, so I'm working with sour apples. These are the Granny. She says use 4 or 5 apples. I got way more than that, but that's because of this pie dish that I'm using, which this is a deep dish pie dish. It's 9.5 inches. She's recommending using a 9-inch pie dish, but this is the nice one that I got. Now, I've used this one on the show before, and everyone in the comments said, you're using such a big pie dish, don't use it. Well, I have it, so I want to. So first up, I gotta pare and core and cut the apples into 8ths. Can I have a bowl? Thank you so much. Now I don't want these to prematurely brown, so kind of get some lemon juice in there. I've gone with both slices like this and slices like this, but I didn't want to slice into 8ths because it would just be way too thick. So yeah, just had to make a decision. I think Fannie would appreciate that. So firstly, what I'm going to do here is split this dough in half. And I think since I'm using the deep dish pie dish, this should be exactly what I need. Flour up and let's get to town here. Roll into a 1/4 inch thick. Okay, get that in the pie dish. This pie dish might be too big. I don't think I can use this. All right, so I got the 9-inch pie dish here. This one's not as nice to look at, but it's tin and it's gonna get the job done. It has to at this point. First of all, I've rolled out my bottom crust a bit too thin, so I need a mulligan, if you don't mind. Okay, I think that should do it. So I'm gonna take my apples and I'm putting a row around 1/2 inch from the edge and work yourself towards the center until the plate is covered. No one's gonna know how nicely or unnicely that looks. I think it'd be wise to get this in the fridge while I figure out the next step. Sorry, Fannie, I know you don't got one. The sugar, bowl me, thank you, and the lemon, thank you. 2/3 cup of sugar, 1/2 teaspoon of ground nutmeg, so say when. That's a half a teaspoon. You can stop grating. Now, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, a few grates of this lemon rind, 2 teaspoons of lemon juice juiced into here. It's gonna get, oh, it's not gonna work. Plus, I've already used about a teaspoon of lemon juice on here. Noted. Okay, it's 1 teaspoon. Let's use that. That should be good. Whisk that all together. It won't whisk. I knew it wouldn't. Yeah, do it that way. Okay, mix it with your hands. That works. Sprinkle the sugar mix over the apples. How much? Doesn't say, just says sprinkle it over. She says to add all the apples now and then add the sugar, but I've kind of done a layer of it, and I can add the rest of the apples. She says to use either nutmeg or cinnamon, but I'm like, can I use both? I think she'd be okay with that. Little bit of cinnamon, mix it in with the sugar, and let's get this rest of the sugar on top. So I don't need to use all the sugar because I'm not using all of the apples that I was also doubling. Kind of wish she just gave me the directions of mixing the apples with the sugar before I added it into the pie crust, but that's not what she said, so. Oh, that should work. That should work. Okay, great. Take some water and kind of dampen the outer edge where I'm gonna connect the 2 pieces. And then I put the top crust on top, hello, and then we just press the edges together. I was gonna do a lattice crust on the very top, and then I looked on the cover of this book, and there's kind of a sneak peek of at least what this publisher had in mind for this apple pie, so I think that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna try to copy that. I'm gonna fork it. Crimp it with style. I'm gonna take my thumb and just kind of make an imprint around the edges here. Teardrop shapes in the center, kind of as a vent. Yes, that's great. Do a bunch of these. I mean, that looks kind of like the front cover there. Oven's turned on. Okay, so do I need to do? Oh, forgot the butter. I was supposed to put the butter underneath the crust here. I really wish I added my teaspoon of butter that I was gonna dot and spread it all over the top of the filling. That is, not on the top of this, but I screwed up. Now this nice looking pie doesn't have the butter in there. I wonder if I can just like add it in there. Yeah. I mean, this is the only chance I got, but this is what I can do to save my pie. Unless I take the crust off and then I just gonna ruin everything, I know it. And then you know what I'm gonna do is this. Move it all in the pie. It's gotta work, right? It's just gotta. So I would love to give this pie an egg wash so that comes out of the oven all golden brown on the top, but Fannie has no mention of that, and that's the whole point of this video, is to be following along to Fannie's recipe. All right, so that needs to go in the fridge. I just need to figure some stuff out. So I had to resort to reading the Fannie Farmer cookbook, which is the like updated revisions to these recipes. It kind of fills in the blanks that Fannie kind of leaves you high and dry with. So including oven temperatures, which always comes in handy, but also there's a lot of things here that it would have been great to know. So that's good to know for the future. Oven's been preset to 425 now, thanks to this cookbook. I'm gonna get that into the oven, bottom rack, because I want the crispy bottom, right? So it's 425 for the first 10 minutes, and then I gotta lower the oven to 350 for the rest of the time, 30 to 40 minutes. That's it. Besides that, this book doesn't exist. After baking this for around 50 minutes in total here, this pie needs to be thoroughly baked through and brown. I'm gonna go through the vent with the skewer and pierce some of these apples. And if they're tender and the crust is browned, this is done. Great job. That's an order up. Now this pie certainly looks the part. Looks like it's from the 1800s. Look how rustic it looks. Beautiful. I don't think Fannie cared about posting this on Instagram. So, you know, as long as it's delicious, I don't think she gave a shit. I'm trying to slice out one slice, Many people have told me to cut 3 slices. That way, the middle slice, when you take it out, will look the nicest. Take the first slice out without worrying about it. Whoa. Oh, man, down. Oh, that bottom crust looks amazing though. Check out the bottom crust. Bottoms up. Just look at that crust. That's a beautiful thing right there. This is heavenly. Perfection. Fannie, you did it. Well, so did I. I've had my slice. Normally I would be done. Well, no, I'd probably have a second slice anyway, but I'm gonna have a second slice. But the point is, while that pie was baking, I was reading through the updated Fannie Farmer cookbook here. It says the pie is good served warm. I can confirm that. With a wedge of sharp cheddar cheese. What? So damn curious that it's gotta happen right now. This is seriously sharp cheddar cheese. I've had this in the fridge, and little did I know that I'd be serving it with apple pie. That's what's gonna happen. So I looked online and I saw a couple images of people serving it kind of like that, but the cheese was melting a bit. Put this in the microwave for like 15 seconds. Sharp cheddar cheese on top of apple pie. I wanted to confirm that this is an actual thing, so I looked online, and I guess it is. There is some controversy around it, as you would expect. People that say you shouldn't do it, people that say you should do it. Well, I don't know where I land on this, but this is a great excuse to have a second slice, so. I don't think I need to turn this into a thing or anything. It just tastes like cheddar cheese on apple pie. I think I like apple pie without the cheddar cheese. Call me crazy. I can confirm that Fannie Farmer's apple pie is a winner, a big winner. That was magnificent. I loved it. Just simple apple pie. No crazy stuff going on in there. I was confused the whole time making it, but it all paid off. You can see here, flaky pie crust everywhere. Love to see it. Mess, who cares? This was Jamie and Fannie. Good night.